All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We know everyone has a very hectic schedule. We are busy. It's near the end of the week, almost Friday, which is always exciting. So excited to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. Any of you who haven't joined any of Hirsch webinars, we try to give you the facts and get you out within about a 20-30 minute time frame. We respect your time. We know you have a lot going on. So thank you again for logging in. I'm going to ask the panelists to turn on their cameras and their microphones, and we are going to get started. So first, I'm just going to make a bit of an introduction before we get going. We have Charron, who is the CEO of Homes by Avi, here with us, and Kevin Hatch, who is the sales manager as well. And we really put this webinar together. We were talking about how can we educate, anyone locally within Calgary, but also from Ontario. We're seeing a lot of people buying in the Calgary market, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And we're going to go through that today, and how to educate you on why Calgary. Why is Calgary a really, really great investment? And I'm speaking from experience as I've invested in Calgary as well. Why there's a lot of growth potential that's happening now, but also you're going to see continued over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And then obviously, specifically, we're here to talk about Sovereign on 17th Avenue, which is our downtown location. So I'm going to get started. So I'm going to hand it over to speak. I want to give a little bit of a history of Homes by Avi, kind of, what you speak to, you've been here for over 45 years, Charron. I'm going to let you kind of take it through and give everyone a little bit of background on the company.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Karen. Thanks for arranging this and everybody for attending. It's June 1st was actually our 45th year anniversary since we founded in Calgary back in 1978. So, we are doing quite a bit of push to get that word out. So this really works well into my program to make sure that people know. So we've been through considerable number of market cycles, of course, and we built 20,000 homes and counting already. I think more about 21 and a half currently for Albertans. We build in Calgary, we build in Edmonton, we also build in Austin, Texas. As well. And then we build products all the way from estate homes all the way down to apartments and condos, townhomes, street-oriented townhouses, and duplexes and single family. So we do it all. We work 70% in the suburban environment, and we work about 30% in the urban environment. So we have quite a bit of experience with multifamily. We've been building it since 2000. We built, countless projects. I think we're over 50 some odd multifamily developments that we've put forward. We have a staff of almost 300 of us spread through our markets, including the divisions for construction management, which we build multifamily developments for third-party clients, including some from Toronto as well in the Calgary market. And we also have a property management company as well as a condominium management company that we do, apart from a division that also develops our land holdings as well. So we develop some of our own land holdings, and then we deal with developer partners as well to acquire land for our projects and our homes. So we are a top 10 builder in the city. It varies from top 5 to top 10, based on permit count. It's our founder is Avi Amir, and he's still in the business. He also happens to be my father as well. But I've been working at the company since I was 16 years old, and I'm just north of 50 right now. Don't tell anybody. I'm proud to be here and proud to be part of this webinar this morning.
Thank you. And I mean, you don't look a day past 40, so you're doing very well for yourself. But I want to touch a little bit just before we move to the next slide, because I think it's really important to speak to the fact that you have your own construction management and you have your own property and condo management. And the reason I say that is what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of builders don't have construction within. And I think having your own construction team really holds a lot more accountability for you from, developing your product to executing the product to delivering the product. And I think that's a really unique key factor, especially if I speak from Ontario. We don't see that a lot. We have very few developers who have in-house, and you can always see the difference in something that has their in-house construction management finish versus farming it out to someone else. And that's a really key point that I want people to kind of recognize, because it just speaks to the quality of the build. Also speaking to the fact that you have your own management, your own property management. When I look at that from a long-term investment, because realistically, no matter how you're buying real estate, whether you're buying to live in, whether you're buying as an investment, it's always an investment. You always want to make sure that you're putting your money in the right place and it's going to make you money. And I think that really holds the caliber of the building long-term versus a lot of times it's turned over. And I mean, I sit on many condo boards in my buildings, and, you have a lot of issues with property management and condo management in that sense. So the fact that you have kind of all of this and you've really tailored it, I look at it that it's not just about delivering a product and then see you later, we're gone. It's kind of, you take it from the beginning step all the way to the end and into the future so that there's a value to purchasers long-term.
Yeah, the reason we established Blue Jean Realty, which is our condominium and property management company, is twofold. I mean, we participate in a multiple survey process with every one of our purchasers, every one of our homeowners, that will take a survey at point of sale, and then one at possession, and then one a year past possession. And we would continually see the same issues, which were, my condominium management company isn't taking care of me. I feel lost, and that there's got to be a better way to do it. And the only way to do that was to establish our own, frankly. And of course, it's a hands-off, company, right? But I mean, we established that our values were going to be to get back to people within 24 hours, right? To actually provide a response, to do the best we can, to imbue that sense of service with the same level of attention that we do to, during our construction process. So, that's why we did it. And the construction management company was really born out of, I'm sure many people know that, about 5 years ago, the market in Calgary was a little slow. And we had a full multifamily division that that was wanting to do something, and that's actually strange. That was the same time that we had an influx of developers that wanted to come in from out of town. So we started working for them and building some of their developments. So I mean, it's a great team building a quality product, and we thought, well, why not? Let's build it for third parties as well. So it's been quite successful on both those ends.
And I think just before we move to the next slide, the one thing I want to touch on when you spoke to customer service and the fact that you want to get back to people within 24 hours, that sort of thing, because I mean, I can speak from experience. Anytime I've bought a condo, the customer service after that initial purchase and moving over to, getting possession is always a lot of times a bit of a struggle. And I think you've won multiple awards, have you not, for not just design, but also for your customer service side?
Yes, absolutely. So, we are a multiple year winner. I think it goes back about 6 or 7 years, where we have top standing in called Customer Insight, which is the survey company that we use, and a whole bunch of builders in Calgary and Alberta, frankly, I think actually across the continent use Customer Insight. So we ranked very, very high at the very top tier of those Customer Insight survey, that program. And then as far as awards, I mean, the Home Builders Association provides awards on 3 different levels: municipally, provincially, and then nationally. Focusing just on the national, we're a 3-time Canadian Home Builder of the Year awards recipient. So, it breaks down into, you know, they call it, I think, the awards of excellence now. You know, so we've won that over the past decade. I think just over a decade, but, you know, three times, and the most recent being, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. So, you know, but provincially, we've been the builder of the year several times, and you know, we also have our divisions as well when it comes to our design. Has won numerous times. I mean, you know,
Great.
we're in close to 100. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to move on to the next slide, but just, you know, to note is obviously from anyone who's looking to buy, we've seen it time and time again. I don't know if this has been common in Calgary. It's definitely been common here in Toronto, where builders get into the market. You know, they think, oh, this is great. We're going to make all this money. We're going to build. We can do it. And then we see those projects not go through. We see those projects cancel. And from anyone who's selling, or if you're a client buying, it's really difficult because 3 years later, now you're priced out of the market. What you were buying 3 years ago and to now you're not able to do, and you get your deposits back and it's see you later. So I think, you know, we always say buying from a reputable builder who has experience, who's been around, you know, to your point, who's done awards, and the fact that customer service and everything is really kind of checks all those boxes of when you're looking to purchase pre-construction. So I'm going to go over now to the next slide. And I want to talk a little bit about Sovereign and the building. So the building is located, for anyone who's familiar with Calgary, it's core downtown. It's the best location you can be in. It's located at 17th Ave Southwest and 1st Street. So right within 2-minute walking distance to all the restaurants, the cool restaurants, the shops, you know, pretty much everything is within a 5 to 10 minute walk from the site, which is really unique. We'll get into a little bit about the location, but I want to talk a little bit about the build and concrete versus wood frame. The reason I'm bringing this up is anyone who's familiar with, you know, anyone from Toronto, majority of our buildings are concrete, because most of the time we have very limited land. They have to go up versus going across. And it just makes more sense in terms of the height that they go concrete. In Calgary, you have a little bit of a mixture of both, but wood frame is definitely more popular because a lot of times it's more of a mid-rise. It's not as much density, not as much height. Now, a lot of people don't understand the big difference of concrete versus wood frame. I'm going to speak to it a little bit because I can actually say I've experienced it. I've lived in and owned in wood frame and concrete buildings. Concrete buildings in terms of noise transfer are substantially better. And I say that from someone who has dogs who used to throw, you know, in my unit, throw the ball and they'd run around, and my neighbors below me never complained. I never heard my neighbors next to me, never heard my neighbors above me. And that is because there's a concrete slab and there's sheer walls typically in between a lot of the suites. And that helps eliminate noise. Again, because it's a pretty big piece of structure and concrete that you're not going to hear it transfer. In terms of a long-term investment hold and a resale value, you know, obviously it's going to sell really well because, again, there's that longevity of it, and there's a lot of people who are looking to live. If they had the option, I mean, I can speak personally, if I had the option of a wood frame versus a concrete, I go concrete all day long because I want to make sure that I'm not bothering my neighbors and my neighbors aren't bothering me. Now, granted, wood frames come a long way since we talk about those that were built in the 80s, but there is definitely a substantial difference. Kevin, I know we were talking a little bit about this in concrete and the history in Calgary. Do you want to give a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, sure. A few things with concrete, though, that you'll also find over wood frame is that insurance rates are much lower on concrete buildings than they are in wood, obviously, because wood's going to, a building, if it does catch fire, burn up compared to the concrete building that has, I think they say it's up to 7.5 times higher is your insurance rate. I'm not sure building to building it would vary, but it can go up to 7.5 times. And the beauty of concrete is you don't have the special assessments come down 10, 15 years, because I know we're all looking for like a long-term investment here. And, you know, with concrete, you don't get that special assessment as regular as you would on a wood frame. But talking about how people in Calgary look at concrete, it's definitely got a higher value to it in Calgary. It's not as common in Calgary, as you said. So when a concrete building comes up, it's more unique. I know it's a common thing in Toronto, but we don't build as many concrete buildings in the downtown core of the Beltline. So when they come up, it's more of a unique opportunity. And your rent, typically you get a higher rent rate because of what you said. It's quieter. They're more efficient building. Most of the time we have a concrete building in Calgary, it's in a better location. We don't have high rise concrete buildings in the outskirts outside of the belt line too often. So it's more unique opportunity for sure to have a concrete building in the belt line than you see. It's not a regular thing.
And I think from like a resale standability, standpoint, when you're buying something and you're investing, and whether you're living in it, there's always at any time you might want to sell, and to have something that's a little bit more unique where you really don't have as much competition, I think is really, really important, because now you're not competing with 10, 20 other buildings. You're only competing with a very small pocket of buildings. So you're going to get a lot more of those buyers who are specifically looking coming to your property. And go ahead.
I would, I just want to make one more distinction, which is that, there are quite a few actual concrete buildings that are going up in Calgary, but those are all purpose-built rentals. So we're getting massive REITs that are coming out here and putting up concrete high rises in the belt line. The belt line, pretty much, just for those not familiar, denotes south of downtown, between downtown and 17th Avenue. And so, what our premise is, and what we're doing with Sovereign is rather than, a large institutional investor coming in and building the entire building and having that as one of their assets, we're suggesting that, we are a purpose-built rental building that we're going to be offering to the individual investors. So it allows the investors to come in on a concrete building and invest into that. The rental market that we have going on in Calgary, which is really quite strong. And I think you'll be addressing that later in your presentation.
Yeah. Perfect. Agreed. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. So I'm going to take the next few minutes to just kind of run everyone through why invest in Calgary. And I'll speak to a little bit of experience. I met with Homes by Avi back in, I guess it was the early new year, came down. I actually have family out in Alberta. I'm originally from the prairies, so very familiar with it. Came down to visit, came down to see the site. And, as soon as I got there, I fell in love. I do this a lot here in Ontario. So I can understand when we look at a piece of land, what it's going to become. And I think when I say that this is an amazing location, it's truly an amazing location. We went down the street to go have a drink and to chat, and it took us, it was a 1-minute drive. And if we could have walked there in less than 5 minutes. And I think that's really important. But when it comes to why invest in Calgary, and we know there's a lot of different provinces right now that are growing. I think where it comes, the difference in Calgary is a few things. And I've kind of put it on this graph that you see here: affordability, pro-investment, population growth, and standard of living. This is going to be up on our portal, which we can share with you after, but just really high level. When I talk to affordability, especially for those who are here from Ontario, low purchase price. I don't hear of anything anymore in the GTA of Toronto that you can get something in the 300s and the 400s. It's very, very unheard of. Low down payment, only 10%. So you can literally invest with as little as $37,000 to, I think our highest was just over $60,000 into a property, which again, here in anyone from the GTA, it's unheard of. It's not doable here unless you're buying later on in the project. The big one for me is no development charges. So in the GTA, we're used to seeing development charges. They range anywhere right now. Just that one fee, which, by the way, anyone who doesn't know APS is for GTA, there's multiple other fees that you end up being charged on closing. Just development charges alone usually are capped between $15,000 to $30,000. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, in the GTA, a typical 1-bedroom just for development charges right now is $30,000, and they are increasing that. It's going to be $50,000 by the end of, early 2024, meaning that all these caps we're seeing are just going to go up. You are not paying any of that in Calgary. And I think in this project, which is huge, you also have no land transfer tax and no HST. It's only GST, which is 5%. I note that one because in Toronto, we have a lovely double land transfer tax. So for the cost of a car, I have to pay to buy my home and close on my home or on my condo, which is just insane. So you don't have that, your savings there. So right now I'm talking about, depending on your purchase price, anywhere from $70,000 to over $100,000 in savings. And then low closing costs. So it's a little bit different out in Calgary. You're really only, your closing costs are really your legal fees, which are going to run you under $2,000. Now in the GTA, an average closing cost, when I add up all the fees in an agreement, are anywhere from a small unit is a minimum of $20,000 upwards to $50,000. That's not including your land transfer tax. That's not including HST if you don't qualify for the HST rebate program. So you can see already we're talking like $150,000 to $200,000 in savings, because yeah, sure, front page we look at, but you always have to think of closing and what everything you're going to owe at that time. When I talk about pro investment, positive cash flow. So we have analysis that we can share with you. We're going to go through it a little later on a few of our suites. It's also up on our board because we're doing a 2-year rental guarantee and property management. They are positive cash flowing within year 2. There is no such thing anymore in the GTA of Toronto to cash flow positive. You're negative. You are in the red. Probably now with our pricing, a minimum of $800 to $1,000 a month. So really investors are still buying based on appreciation. They're not really buying anymore on a cash flow basis. Whereas here in Calgary, not only can you buy on appreciation, but you can also buy and still cash flow. A big one from someone who's a landlord here in the GTA, Alberta favors the landlord. And I'll speak to that a little bit more in detail on the next slide. And I laugh because I've dealt with the tenants and I know the landlord-tenant board, and I promise you it's not fun. No rent control. We have rent control here in the GTA. You know, you have a property, you cannot increase it by whatever the rental rates are, and it's very minimal. So let's say, 2%, it's usually 2% of the rent per year. And it's nothing, whereas there's no rent control here in Calgary. So if your expenses go up, your interest rates, which we've just seen in the market go up, we can increase the rent to be able to cover that, which here in the GTA for most product, unless it's brand new built, you cannot. The rental guarantee, which I spoke to, there's a 2-year rental guarantee. So and property management. So it's a hands-free, hands-off investment. You turnkey, have someone in there, it's cash flowing for 2 years. You do not have to worry about it. Population growth. So, Charron talked a little bit about, a little while ago, how it was a little slow in the market. And I believe that's because Calgary and Alberta in general was really known for oil. That was kind of the base of where a lot of people talk about kind of the growth in Calgary. Now, I will say that Alberta's really focused not just obviously on producing oil, but a lot of other things. You have a lot of big companies, big corporations moving their head offices to Calgary, to downtown specifically, because the tax breaks, the cost of living for their employees is lower. It's, Calgary has an international airport, so it's still easy to get around. You have the highest GDP growth, the highest equity growth, positive net migration. And I want to speak to that one. We're going to speak to it on a few slides later, because I think that's a really big one. We're seeing a lot of people within Canada moving to Alberta, and majority of those are ending up in Calgary. Rental rates have increased substantially over the years. It's over 20% from last year, and high demand in the rental market. And if you actually look at the rents in downtown Calgary versus Toronto, they're honestly not that far off. It's really not a big gap, but you're paying substantially less for that investment property. We talk about standard of living. Calgary has the highest income in Canada, the lowest cost of living. It's been ranked the world's third most livable city, ranked 3rd best city to find a job. So again, we talk about a lot of these big companies and corporations coming downtown, and it's the 2nd highest level of educational attainment. And I think that's a really big one. So again, I read this and made this and then kind of sold myself and ended up purchasing in the project, because it's a no-brainer to me. It makes sense. And it's hard to find that anymore in kind of the BC and the Ontario markets. We don't see this positive, not just appreciation now, and also cash flow and from a rental standability. So we're going to talk a little bit about being a landlord. I can speak from experience in Ontario. So we compare Ontario and Alberta. Ontario has rent control, Alberta does not. In Alberta, fixed term tenancies end at expiry. That's a really big one. In Ontario, fixed term tenancies go month to month. That means that if you want to move into your suite, if you want to sell your suite, you still have to give notice. And technically the tenant can come at you and make you pay a month's month's rent worth or moving expenses, which you do not have in Alberta. Deposits, you can ask for a security damage deposit. It's permitted. It is not permitted in Ontario. So we cannot ask for any damage deposits. So I know you're giving us that look because it's crazy. I have these stories, not me personally, I have friends. They've had tenants trash the place and leave, and they have nothing to cover it. There is no deposit to cover that recourse. And the biggest thing, I'm just going to skip one to the landlord tenant board. So if your tenant's not paying your rent, we call it squatting, they will sit in that unit for up to, I would say 10 to 12 months now, because the last person I talked to a few weeks ago, they waited 12 months to be able to go to the landlord tenant board and move that tenant out. So for 12 months, that tenant did not pay rent and they were stuck in there and they couldn't get rid of them. And then the landlord tenant board gives them a nice little payment package and they still have 60 days to move out and find a new place. So really you're out of pocket for over a year. The difference in Alberta is the wait is 14 to 28 days on average. That means as a worst case scenario, you are going to have your unit pay out of pocket for maybe a month, maximum 2, depending on when they ask them to move out, maximum. But remember, you have a damage deposit. So you're able to at least cover that with some of that loss. And the biggest thing is pet provisions. So in Ontario, they are not enforceable. If you sign something that says no pets, legally a tenant can get a pet. And unless they become a nuisance or a problem or attack people in the building or around you, they cannot be vacated. They can go after you. In Alberta, it's fully enforceable. So you can say no pets. And if your tenant ends up bringing a pet and you have problems, you can say, bye-bye, see you later. Here's your notice, get out of my unit. And I say that and I speak from experience because as a landlord, we are the ones on the line. We're the ones that own the property. We're the ones that are paying the mortgage on the property. We're the ones that if something goes wrong, it all falls on us, not on the tenant. So to not have the proper support behind us, that if we have a problem tenant to be able to get rid of them, to me is a really, really big one. And it's becoming worse and worse here in Ontario. So that was a really big reason for why I personally purchased here and in the market, because I think it's, I think we're going to see that's a really big one. I think we're going to see a lot more people from the GTA going over for a lot of those reasons. Now, we all talk about investment. We all talk about price. I'm going to go over this really high level, but this is kind of a pre-construction snapshot of Calgary versus Vancouver versus Toronto. And we verse them versus Vancouver and Toronto because obviously we know they're some of the most expensive real estate in the country. So when we look at, and this was kind of going to concrete, we're looking at Calgary is $820 per square foot on average. And when we're looking at a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, that's an average about $820,000. Your average rent is about $3 a square foot. When we go over to Vancouver, you're over $1,100 average a square foot. So that 2-bedroom now is over $1 million, and your rent is about $484 a square foot. Toronto, which I think is the really big one, is an average of $1,400 a square foot. I can speak from experience. I know what's going on in the market downtown. Nothing is launching under $1,600 a square foot right now. So this was kind of an average, but really any of the new launches are $1,600 plus. Your 2-bedroom is now over $1.4 million, but your average rent is only $4 a square foot. Now, give or take, some locations might be a little bit more, but if you really look at the spread between the purchase price and the rent, it's really not that substantial. You're still going to cash flow on the rents in Calgary. And one thing I want to highlight, and you can get the price list from us after this webinar, is we are actually below this average PSF. Reason being is you're buying in at the beginning, you're buying in at day one pricing before we start construction. Once construction and excavation starts, prices will go up, and that is standard in any pre-construction. So this is the time to buy in if you kind of want to get first day pricing, and we are anticipating that's going to start in the fall. I spoke a little bit about this, so I won't take too long with it, but kind of top 6 reasons of investment incentives. Lowest tax rates in the country, no HST and no provincial sales tax. So again, it's only a 5% GST. Biggest thing to me for growth of Calgary is the government is investing $10 billion in infrastructure. That's really big. They're recognizing and they're investing in the core and in Calgary to become and kind of give it that boom versus just everyone coming down and it's not being properly planned out. And I want to speak to that because I think, we'll keep politics out of this one, but a lot of times if the governments aren't supporting the infrastructure and the growth, it kind of lags behind. And this is one that they're actually investing in Calgary itself. No development charges, no land transfer tax, and again, no rent control. Population growth, we can see it up here on the slides, but one thing I really want to talk to is kind of the growth within Calgary and what, Homes by Abby, what you guys are seeing. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about, you've obviously been selling in the market for a while. You live in Calgary. What are you seeing from like a growth perspective?
Yeah, I think, it's changed since COVID. Once COVID hit and people realized they can work from home, we really saw a huge influx of people come from Ontario, Vancouver. They just realized the house that they can buy here, they could pay cash for and sell in Toronto or Vancouver. And it'd be probably at least 50% of our sales last year would have been out of province. And most of that would be Toronto. So it's really grown within Alberta. Calgary's the place to go. People move to Alberta. I think 48% of them moved to Calgary. So that's a pretty good stat right there. But Toronto is probably our biggest influence coming to Calgary in the last few years. It's like 50% of our sales it's a pretty significant number.
And, it's funny you say that because I actually have a few friends who did exactly what you said. They sold their condos. Majority of them, to be honest, in your early 30s, you can't afford a home unless your parents are helping you with it here. They sold their property. Their 2-bedroom here was $800,000, $900,000, and they were able to buy something in Calgary at $500,000, $600,000. So to that point, you're now pocketing, quite a substantial amount of cash, which helps put them ahead. Also, when I spoke to a lot of corporations and businesses moving over to Calgary because of the tax benefits, that's been a really big one too. A lot of people are moving because their companies are moving their head offices from Toronto or from Vancouver, and they're coming over to Calgary and they want to kind of live close to where they work. Just a really high level, because I'm a nerd for some of these stats, I want to give you a few stats for kind of the Calgary and the immigration. So last year, I was actually probably a few months ago at a Zonda breakfast, and they were talking about Calgary and the market and how it's booming, and they're really tracking the analytics of it. They had a great stat that really sparked me. It was last year, 99,000 people left Ontario to move to Alberta. 99,000. So pretty much 100,000 people from Ontario moved to Alberta. And as Kevin said, I would say probably 50%, if not a little bit more, are going into Calgary. So that's a massive number, just net migration. And that's only Ontario. That's not including all the other provinces. And one stat that I pulled up is immigration, both international and interprovincial, was up 221% in Q4 2022 versus Q4 2021. That's a big number. And we are not seeing those numbers, especially when we talk about it from interprovincial. We're seeing a lot more people that are picking up and moving here, to Kevin's point, because they're working remote. They can really work from anywhere, or their companies are moving, or their job allows them, they're able to find something in Alberta. And again, the cost of living, it's substantially cheaper. I mean, here in Ontario and in Toronto, you're over, I would say probably 65% of your paycheck is just going to your rent or your mortgage or your overhead, if not more. So there's the cost of living and the standard of living is very different here versus in Calgary. And I think that's a really big one. Charron, can you speak a little bit about, obviously you've been in the market now with Homes by Abby, you've seen the differences and the ups and downs of the market. Obviously you don't have a crystal ball, so I don't hold anything to you, but what do you see in the future? You obviously see the government's investing money into the province. Do you have any predictions of how you see this continuing to grow?
Well, one of the things, and you touched on earlier, is as far as industry goes, we did have Calgary. It's the heart of the energy industry in Canada. So we have quite a few of those head offices. The vast majority of head offices are in Calgary in regards to the energy sector. But the big thing that changed over the past 5 or 6 years is that we had a lot of vacant office space in the downtown that is now, although there are still vacancies, there's, a lot of these buildings are getting refurbished into apartments now downtown. But we also have a very strong influx of high-tech companies that are coming in and settling into the Calgary area. Also, logistics has picked up, and transportation has picked up quite a bit in Calgary, and so we're really seeing a diversity of industry that's happening in the Calgary region, and that's it's been a long time coming, and so even now, as let's just take it from the news. I mean, the news used to be focused. Anything about the economy was typically focused on oil and gas and the energy sector. Now it's actually far more diverse. So we are hearing about these new companies that are establishing their home in Calgary and expanding. And I think that's really had an effect on the job market here. So it's very easy to get a job in Calgary. And that in turn has brought the influx of people, which in turn is fueling this increase in the rental rates, which have been really quite dramatic in the Calgary region.
Perfect. And I actually had someone ask a question, and I think it ties in perfectly before we kind of move on to more building and area specifics and we were actually talking about this before we started the webinar, was the non-resident speculation tax. So if anyone who's on here is aware, there is a foreign buyer ban that our Prime Minister put into place earlier this year, which means if you're a non-resident, you cannot purchase real estate anywhere in Canada unless, again, you are a citizen, you have a work permit for a certain amount of time, you're a refugee, and there's a few other exceptions. So again, any citizen, so a lot of people we know are citizens of Canada but live abroad. They are not residents technically of Canada right now. Now in BC and in Ontario, there is a tax that we charge. So if they do not have a permanent residence here in Ontario, I'll use as an example. So they're Canadian, they have a passport, but they don't live here. They are charged a non-resident speculation tax. Same thing in BC. In Alberta, there is no such thing. So as long as you have a Canadian passport, you can purchase in Alberta and you are not taxed. Nothing has been introduced as of yet. And typically anything that was introduced, I know in BC and Ontario, it was grandfathered. So that's a really big one. And it's funny because Krista, who's here with us, is our sales rep on site. She was asking that question because she's been getting a lot of questions about that, because a lot of people who are living abroad want to continue to invest in Canada. They believe in our market, but they're limited to where they can invest, and no one wants to spend, all the different closing costs, the land transfer, and then you have this, NRST tax. It doesn't make sense. So I think for anyone who's on here who's looking to invest, you are a Canadian resident, or if you have clients that are a Canadian resident, they are a Canadian citizen, sorry, not resident, they can purchase in Alberta and they are not taxed. And I think that's a really big key item to note on. And again, if you just look at the history of taxes in Alberta, they're just substantially less, and it's substantially more beneficial from that standpoint to purchase property in Calgary, and specifically pre-construction, so it can continue to grow and build you equity while it's being built. So sorry, bear with me. I'm going to go over to the next slide here. You're not going to go for me. So let's talk a little bit about the area specifically. For those who don't know downtown Calgary, who don't know our location, what you can see here on the map is the two circles. Those circles, the first one represents anything that's walkable within 5 minutes and anything that's walkable within 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that's a really big thing to note, because again, living downtown is all about convenience. It's all about being able to walk outside your door and be able to walk to all the restaurants, all the shops, the nightlife, your workplace, anything like that. And I think that's really the key driver to downtown. Kevin, can you kind of take it away and maybe speak to the growth that's coming in downtown and the redevelopment that you're seeing there?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I know a lot of the people here are from Toronto. So our building Sovereign's on 17th Avenue. So that would kind of be like being on Bremner Boulevard or just off Spadina in Toronto, I think. We have a $1.2 billion approved arena and area improvement structure plan that's going on your map. You can see the rink there right on the right-hand side of your map. Yeah, so right in there, that whole area is having a massive $1.2 billion improvement being done, and that includes 17th Avenue. some on 17th Avenue, which is right where Sovereign, our building, is. So it's, we're pretty excited about it. We've got the biggest convention center in Western Canada. The BMO just had a $500 million renovation. It's probably 3/4 or 80% done now. So this entertainment district here is the most significant one in Western Canada, in my opinion. And it's exciting. It's something that's making this street, 17th Avenue, and our building very unique, is that we're that close to such an area that's going to have that kind of demand. For Stampede, Calgary Stampede, I'm sure you've all heard of it. And any events like that, it's literally a 5-minute walk to those destinations. So if you're renting out here, that's a great opportunity.
Yeah. And I think to that point, especially if you're buying now and it's pre-construction, is you're getting in at this price. And since there's so much development going on in the neighborhood, we all know the value of the neighborhood's only going to go up from here. So you're kind of getting in before that boom of the neighborhood, because there's all this redevelopment that, long-term, not only from a value standpoint of a resale, but also to what you said, Kevin, rental, it's close to all these conveniences. So that's going to be a really big one for someone who's looking to rent. It kind of checks all the boxes for them. And I think that's really important. And to what Kevin said, it's a Bremner kind of Spadina area. So really like Maple Leaf Square, if we think about it, where Raptors and, our hockey team plays, the Maple Leafs. It also has, when I say 4th Ave, which is all the restaurants and the kind of boutique shops, reminds me of if for anyone who's from Toronto, it's a combination of kind of a King Street or a Queen Street or even a Liberty Village. Maybe that's the best description, is a Liberty Village. You have everything within a few minute walk to you. Banks, groceries, restaurants, nightlife. And that's really important when you're looking for downtown living. And I'm going to speak, I know I've spoke a lot about headquarters coming in, a lot of, big businesses. One big thing too is tech sector. There's a huge tech sector that's coming into Calgary. It's already been there and it's growing there. And a lot of their, head offices and their locations are downtown, literally right next to the site. So that's a really big one as well. And that tech sector is continuing to grow.
Yeah, that tech sector is actually from Tech 30 has it projected as the 3rd overall growth in North America in Calgary. Wow. Yeah. So that's pretty. We're not a one-horse town anymore. We're not just oil and gas. We're really seeing a big influx of tech. So. Yeah.
And no, they don't ride on horses in Calgary. They have cars. Awesome. So I'm going to give a really high level. We're going to kind of keep the building itself, just go really high level into it. Again, any information you want, please reach out to us. I'll have all of our contact information at the end of the slide. You can reach out. We can give you everything kind of individually. We wanted this to be a bit more of an information session so you can understand Calgary and understand kind of the building high level. But as we've talked about, the building's located on 17th Ave. It's 13 stories total, which includes main floor retail and urban homes. It's 155 total units with 22 different floor plans. And the top 2 floors are our penthouse floors. Amenities, we have very low maintenance. I like to call them amenities, which means that they're things that you're actually using in the building, and they're not going to continue to increase your amenities. And I say that because, we see a lot in Toronto, a lot of buildings with pools, saunas, they're constantly breaking down, they're constantly having issues. And then every year you're seeing increases going up on your maintenance fees, which especially from an investment standpoint, that can be pretty costly. So we have retail and restaurants on the main floor. You have fitness center and owner's lounge. And then big one I want to point is a leasing office on site. So that means, especially from an investment, is there is an actual leasing office that, potential tenants can come into and see the availability and be in the building versus, it's a closed building and it has to be listed. And that's something that's not common here at all in Toronto. And from an investment standpoint, I think is really key to have your actual leasing office and property management that's going to manage your building. Again, you're not forced to do it. You can choose, but why wouldn't you when they're there right on site? And then parking, one thing here is it is underground heated parking. So there's 2 levels and outdoor visitor parking. I'm just going to go really quickly through some renderings of our interiors just to show you some finished product. So all stainless steel appliances, full size appliances. And I say that because anyone who's buying in the GTA, we're not used to it. It's 24-inch. These are full size appliances. So again, very functional, livable spaces with functional kitchen areas that you can fit dining space, functional living room where you can comfortably set, a couch and a love seat and your TV, and higher end finishes. So a better quality cabinet in the kitchen. And I speak because I went to their model homes. I really saw kind of what their finished product looks like. And it's a bit higher of a caliber than what we're used to here in Toronto. Usually some of the things that they're including would be an upgrade. I'll speak to kind of this rendering, and it's funny that people probably think I'm crazy to bring this up, but the door frames, and you see, the hall, the doors and the design of the doors, we're used to in Toronto, these flimsy hollow core, white painted doors. These would be an upgrade, and these would be quite a bit more expensive. So to be able to say that this is kind of the standard of finish that you're going to get here, I think is really big, and is not common here for any of us who are investing or buying in the GTA market. So just going to go in really high level to kind of our suite mix and floor plan design and floor plate. So I think the really thing that I love about Sovereign is they did it all right. They got the suite mix right, and I can't take credit for it because I was not involved in it. But we have a great mixture of studio to 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom suites that are functional, that lay out really well, that there's no wasted space. And I say that because I've worked on tons of floor plans with my clients, and seen lots of floor plans in the Toronto market that are, you look at them and you kind of scratch your head when it says 500 square feet, but really you have 400 square feet of usable space, and 100 square feet is hallway and just random areas that you're not going to use. And I think that's a really big one when we're looking at it from an investment standpoint, and a resale value is, functional livable spaces are very, very important. And I think I'm going to let Charron talk a little bit, because I know you said that you had a recent study done that you kind of checked all the boxes, right? You were saying from a rental standpoint?
Yeah, we did have the building analyzed, of course, because we want to, when we design our buildings, design them as a purpose-built rental for the purpose of individuals being able to invest into it. And so we had Intelligence House, which is a rental study company here in Alberta, and lease-up company as well, and they were really quite impressed with the suite mix that we had designed in the building. They said it was right on target, and so that was good news for us, and reaffirming that we were on the right track.
Perfect. And I think when it comes from an investment standpoint, you really can't go wrong, and we'll go through the analysis in the next slide. But whether you're buying a studio here, whether you're buying a 1 bed, whether you're buying a 2 bed, they're all pretty functional spaces. And I think that all from an analysis standpoint, especially from rental, they all cash flow. So they all make sense. It just really is dependent on, what you're comfortable with in terms of your spending power and what you want to do for a purchase price, your deposit. But we really have a little bit of everything for anyone who's looking to buy in here. Just to go through and kind of go through the plans really high level and really quickly is, here's the Coco, which is our studio. So as you can see, there's no wasted space. You have your living and kind of kitchen area. The one thing I really like about this plan is there's a separate area for a bed to go. Whereas what we're used to in Toronto is typically that bedroom and living room is all in one. So this is a really functional, great layout for, a single person, or anyone who's kind of coming in to work remote here in downtown Calgary. And then we have the Bell, which is a 1 bedroom. This is actually the one that I personally bought. And the reason being is I really liked when you walk in, you have a separate kitchen and living area. I'm used to a lot of times in Toronto seeing them kind of combined because obviously space is limited. And again, there's no wasted space. So you walk through to your bathroom with your entry closet and your washer dryer. And then you have a great bedroom with a window, because again, that's not a very common thing all the time in Toronto in the GTA. And you have a very nice, big, spacious walk-in closet. So lots of storage space, which is always important and seems to always lack from what I've seen here in Toronto. And then again, the outdoor space for me was a really big one here as well. We have these either facing west or east. So there's, and the one thing I'll talk to views is there's really views in this building all the way around the building. Doesn't matter which way you look, you're seeing the city, you're seeing green, you're getting a lot of light into the suite, which is really important. And then just to go really quickly into kind of two bedroom, and den. So the Felix is one of our smaller 2 bedrooms, 682 square feet. So again, you walk in, you have a separate living and kitchen area. You have your master bedroom, which has, the window off of the balcony. And then you have a bathroom, as well as the secondary bedroom with quite a large closet in it. And we have quite a large balcony here as well. And then we go into the Abbey, which is just over 1,000 square feet, 2 bedroom and a den. So you walk in, again, very limited, no wasted space. You have your secondary bedroom, which has a window with a bathroom right outside the door. You have your primary bedroom, which is, again, if we look at bedroom sizes too, very nice, very functional, very large. And you have window on that one, walk-in closet, another bathroom, and then you have a separate kitchen, living, and a living space, which I think is extremely important here, especially from a rental standability. To talk really high level to pricing, again, any information availability, we'll have you reach out to our sales office, but this just gives you a bit of an idea of our price ranges. So our studios start in the mid 300s, 1 bedroom start in the mid 300s. I would say most are probably between the high 300s to the low 400s, depending on what you're looking at. Our 2 bedrooms start in the mid 400s and go upwards to kind of the mid 600s, depending on the layout. And then our penthouses are starting in the high 700s. And so again, when you're taking in terms of what you need for deposit, it's 10% only on these prices. And then I want to talk really high level to the 2-year rental guarantee, because I think that's extremely important and kind of, again, that hands-off investment. So these are all the monthly amounts that you receive for 2 years guaranteed for the different floor plans. This also includes 2 years of property management. There is no rental restrictions in the building. So if you do choose, you don't, closer to occupancy, you have the right that if you don't want to go through the rental program, you can opt out. If you want to do more, furnished short-term rentals, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, more business executive rentals, you could do that. The only thing that obviously you're going to have to pay for is your property taxes, mortgage payment, utilities, maintenance, that sort of thing, which is pretty standard. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, I have 2 examples that I put up of here of the analysis for this one's for the studio specifically. So you'll see all of our year 5 returns on this project are between 99 to 100%, which is unheard of here, especially in Toronto. I can't speak too much to the Vancouver market, but I can speak definitely to the Toronto market. Kevin, do you want to take us through this a little bit? Because I know you're a little bit more familiar with kind of the Calgary rental market as well.
Well, yeah, I can just talk about the rental market right now in Calgary. My daughter's trying to find a place and she's been looking for 3 months and can't find anything. It's so strapped in Calgary for a rental market that the rates have gone up substantially. It doesn't seem like there's an end to it right now. There's just because the affordability is getting a little bit less, it seems like the rental is going to be, the best option for people that are just trying to find a place to live that don't have a down payment. So we're looking at rental rates that have increased, I think 37% in some cases in the last year. Very significant. And you're renting out, as you can see here. I mean, you could probably look at it after yourselves and go through, but you can see to cash flow in 2 years and then to have this kind of rate of return you don't find that in Toronto, from my understanding, and even in Calgary, it's that's why everybody's buying here. That's why it's been such a hot market, and that's why things are looking up in Calgary, is because of a sheet like this where you look at it as an investment and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And I think one thing I want to talk about too is, I know for anyone who's from Toronto and the GTA and isn't familiar with Calgary, we see a lot of influx and some of our local builders are building in Calgary as well. And they're doing rental guarantees, but they're on the outskirts. And what a lot of people don't know, and someone who I'm born and raised in the prairies as well, it is not like the Toronto and the GTA. It is not as accessible. It does not have the commute with the GO train, with the subways, with all these, transit options as we do here in Toronto. And I think that's a really big thing. And the thing with Calgary is when you have tenants that are buying or that are renting, in the outskirts, after a few, let's say 2-3 years, majority of the time they're going to buy. They're staying in the outskirts, they're going to be able to afford to purchase something. Whereas when you have tenants who are looking downtown, you're going to have more long-term tenants, and a better quality of a tenant, because again, the business professional, the young professionals who want to live and work nearby who want the conveniences of downtown, whereas a lot of times on the outskirts you're getting a little bit different of a quality. And I speak to that from even someone in Toronto, I can say, who invests in, you know, the core of Toronto, and I've invested in the GTA of Toronto. The difference of my tenant caliber in these two areas is substantially different, like night and day. I have properties that I've had for 6 years. I've had 2 tenants in the last 6 years. I have one that I've had 1 tenant. My one property that's outside, you know, the Toronto core, every single year I'm getting a new tenant. Like, it's constantly changing, and the caliber of that tenant is definitely not as good as my tenants in the Toronto core. So I see the same thing happening here in Calgary. When you're buying in downtown, it's always going to be a better caliber and more of a long-term tenancy versus when you're in the outskirts. Yeah, after your 2-year rental guarantee is up, great. But then what happens? Now you got to find the tenant on your own, and you're not going to have the same caliber of a tenant that you're going to have somewhere in kind of in the downtown core like we have here. I'll skip through just quickly to show you, because I know I want to keep up with, I know everyone has a time crunch here. So again, these will all be up on our portal, which I'll have our contact. You can reach out to us. We can provide it to you. This is for the Felix, which I showed you, which is the 2-bedroom, 682 square feet. You can see after year 5, just over $100,000 in return and over 100% return, which, as Kevin said, is unheard of, and it has been unheard of in the Toronto market for the last, I would say, 5 years. Limited time only incentives. So 10% only deposit. That's a really big one. So only 10%, that's all you owe. There's a 2-year rental guarantee. There's a 2-year property management. For anyone that doesn't get the rental guarantee or the property management, so really it's most of the penthouse suites, we're doing a $10,000 credit on closing, $0 assignment. So there's no assignment fee if you do not want to go through with closing on the property. Parking. So we're doing $10,000 off the price of parking. So our regular is $40,000. Parking with a locker, what we call here a combination. So you drive up and your locker's right in front of your parking, is $50,000. And price of a locker has been discounted $3,000. So it's $6,000 total. Bicycle storage with electrical outlet, I'm going to talk a little bit about. It's an actual dedicated locker storage that has bicycle racks with a plug in them. And the reason we don't see this as common here in Toronto, in Calgary, it's a lot of people cycle, and a lot of people like to be outdoors. So to have that storage, to be able to properly store your bike and secure your bike. And then if you have an electric scooter, an electric bike, you're able to plug it in as well, which I think is a really big one, which is not as common that we see here in Toronto. And that kind of concludes it. So everything you see on the screen here is our contact information. Krista, who is on the call, who's turning on her camera now, she is our sales rep on Sovereign. It is all things Sovereign for you. So if you have any questions, you can directly email us or call us. Again, reach out to us. We can give you our portal. We can give you our analysis, all the information, all the availability, and we can go from there. There's a few questions I just really quickly want to answer because I saw them. I think we answered a few throughout the presentation. One of them was tentative occupancy date. So our occupancy is for Q2 2026. So again, you're going to invest 10% deposit, which is going to range from probably about 37,000 to, let's say, the high end's about 64, 65,000, and nothing else. And you're not getting the keys until as early as Q2 2026. So you're allowing, as the market is growing, as downtown is booming and growing, you're going to be building equity on a very little amount. And I will say something is, from someone is, I invest a lot in real estate. I don't invest in GICs. I personally don't believe in them. Again, to everyone's opinion. If I put in, and the way I looked at this when I purchased a Sovereign is I'm putting in, my unit was about just under $50,000. Great. I know I'm going to at least double my money. It's a no-brainer. And if you can tell me a bank account that I can do that, or some sort of other investment that's a tangible asset that I can invest and at least at minimum, and I'm being very conservative when I say that, double my money, please let me know, because it's not heard of. And I think to be able to, again, say that it's a tangible asset, it's something that's actually real, that's being built, and being built in an area that is up and coming, that is, already established and just growing quite a bit more, is really exciting. I do have one question here about, what's the best investment in your opinion? Honestly, I think it just depends on your price range and affordability. I don't think you can go wrong in any of our suites, from studios, 1 beds to 2 bedrooms, especially with our rental guarantees. They all make sense, and they all kind of work for any sort of buyer. And we there's tenants for everything. So like Kevin said, you know, his daughter's trying to find something, she can't find something. There's families that are trying to find something, they can't find something. So I think you can't go wrong. And again, for the first 2 years, you know, as of year 2, you're going to cash flow no matter what suite you purchase, which I think is a really big one. And lastly, I'm going to end it with the question of mortgage pre-approval. Yes, a mortgage pre-approval is required. And when I say pre-approval, I say pre-approval. So in Toronto, we see a lot of firm approvals. You know, you have to go through the entire process and get all the documentation done. That is not the case here, but we do need a pre-approval. That is standard typically anywhere you purchase pre-construction, you know, even overseas, to be honest. I bought in the Caribbean, I bought in Florida. It's because the banks that are doing the construction loans require to see that the purchasers who are buying have the capability to close. That is the biggest thing. So it is a requirement, but again, it's a pre-approval. So it's a little bit easier to do, and we have all the requirements for you. So please reach out to us. We can give you that information and make sure we share it with you. So I know we went over a little bit that I said originally, but I think it was a really, really informative session. I hope you learned as much as I did here, and we are looking forward. Please reach out to us. Let us know if there's any further questions that come up. You know, Krista and myself are here to help you, and we are looking forward to speaking with you. And thank you so much, Homes by Avi, Kevin, and Charron, for joining us. We really appreciate your time, really excited to be a part of this project. And I always say this, you know, I'm really excited to be able to visit in 2026 and be able to see this product complete, because it's really great to see something on plan and see renderings and then be able to see a completed product. So thank you again. And everyone have a wonderful day. Enjoy it. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.